Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
Here I am, Banya, again with y'all, and this time I am hosting Monica Kalra. Welcome, first of all, welcome all of you to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi. I am so excited today to welcome Monica that I have actually welcomed her before telling us welcoming you all. So here we go again. All right. So now, who is Monica? Monica Kalra is an executive and personal leadership coach. So we have a dual coach here. She's also a speaker and a multi-award winning author. She's based in Melbourne. She helps brilliant professional women who have achieved success gain more clarity, confidence, and spark in their lives because they are worthy of more success and of creating a legacy. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you so much, Panya, for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Same here. It's lovely to have you here. I am just going through what currently you're doing, and I find that you are working on the aligned life method, and this is so you have this is your own work?
Yes, certainly. Certainly. So my aligned life method, it's primarily a blend. It's an approach wherein I combine a lot of modalities, a lot of practices. Primarily, it's based on these three aspects of psychology, somatic practices, and leadership frameworks. And these help professional women to move forward with more clarity, with more confidence, and at the same time, more aliveness.
Okay, so one question that comes to my mind now is why only women?
Men are welcome too. I do have men as my clients as well. However, I'm more comfortable working with women, and more so because when I say that I'm working with these women in order to ensure that they have a renewed energy or aliveness or clarity or confidence, it's because they take on so many roles and therefore they put themselves last. And as such, during this process, they're either working harder or they're overthinking and or they get into people pleasing. And as such, somewhere along the way, they lose their spark. And that's why I feel more comfortable working with them. But I do have men as my clients too.
Okay, so you feel there's a connection between you and your women clients.
Certainly, certainly. And that's more so because I know what the path that I have walked, and therefore I get to understand what the other women must be walking as well. And knowing that women have such a ripple effect in the society, it makes more sense to work with them because they're associated with so many families, not just with themselves. So when they are able to gain that confidence in themselves, or when they're able to gain that clarity in themselves and step into life with more renewed energy, then that has a ripple effect on everyone around them.
Ah, I also find that you are so talk, let us know a little more about how do you work with the Align Life method? What walk us through the entire process?
So, aligned life method, as I said, it's a blend of somatic practices. It's a blend of psychology, and at the same time, it also incorporates the leadership frameworks. So when I talk about those three, when I'm talking about psychology, it is very, very important, as we all know, to understand certain aspects of ourselves, certain patterns of ourselves that are in the driving seat. And sometimes these patterns may be hidden, we may not know them. So it's important to bring them to the surface because when we are achieving success, we keep achieving to a certain level and then we hit a ceiling. And we cannot go beyond that ceiling till we've done some inner work on ourselves, till we've really reflected and gotten to see what's driving us. I've also seen many successful people. They are successful, however, along with that, they lose their spark. They start seeing their work as being boredom as such. They're achieving everything, yet inside they don't feel, that they have that energy to go on, either because of the same routines, or yes, they do get a dopamine hit when they've had some sort of a success, but it doesn't really touch them. Once they've achieved something, then they want to achieve more and achieve more. So they're driven more by performance, or they're driven more by control, or more by impressions of people. Uh, and so they lose their clarity. So what I mean by clarity is that there has to be an alignment between their mind, their body, and yes, soul, but here I talk about their own voice. So there has to be an alignment. So their internal world has to be in alignment with their external world. But when they are overachieving, when they are successful, somewhere along the way, they're not aligned with what's true for them right now. And that's why clarity implies alignment. So that psychology aspect that I work with, it is to do with alignment. When I'm talking about somatic practices, it is about making sure that we are safe in our bodies. And we are, because our bodies know much quicker than what our mind knows. So being able, and most of us, due to our childhood experiences or whatever experiences, we've left our bodies. We are not in touch with our bodies. So coming back, because knowing when we are out of energy, knowing which are the forces that are draining our energy, managing our emotions. Once we are able to tap into our internal world and feel safe in our internal world and know it through our bodies, then that's the time we can rewire our nervous system, and at the same time come into the present moment and then lead from the inside out. But all this needs structure as well. And that structure comes from my leadership frameworks, where
Right.
they can have a voice. Yes.
So, so when you talked about, the physiology part of it, that, we are no more children and we have grown up, we have lost touch with our body. Is that the somatic aspect?
Yes, that's the somatic aspect, because you're doing the somatic practices to come back into your body and then retrain, so that you are aware of your nervous system and you can rewire it. Because most of the times when we are people pleasing, or when we are working harder, or when we are overthinking, it's primarily our nervous system which is in its protection mode. And when it is in a protection mode, then it is trying to keep us safe through its control. Whereas that worked once when we were children, but it no longer works now as adults. Yes.
Right. And so your Reignite, your Spark assessment, the assessment that you've created, this was created as an outcome of the aligned life method.
Yes, it incorporates
How did this
everything.
come about?
I would highly encourage everyone who's listening here to take that assessment, because that takes into consideration all the aspects of why someone feels stuck, or why someone feels disconnected from themselves, or why someone loses their spark. So whatever is keeping them stuck or lost, those questions, they are on the website, shevive.com.au. If you attempt them, then it gives you why you're feeling stuck or why you're disconnected, and then it gives you certain steps that you can follow, and you can instantly implement them and bring about that momentum in your lives.
Uh-huh. Great. You have been writing. What are the books that you have written so far, or you have contributed your authorship to?
That's a lovely question, because my life has been a journey, just like it's been a journey for everyone. So for years, I have had a very successful practice as a certified relationship coach and a divorce coach. So for years, I've helped people improve their relationships. And at the same time, I've also helped people rebuild their lives after divorce. And those two books that I have on Amazon, and both of them are 5-star books. One of them is called How Do You Know He's the One, which talks about both the red flags and the green flags that we need to have in a relationship. And the other book, How to Heal from a Toxic Relationship, then gives you these strategies on how you can incorporate them into your life and heal from any toxic relationship, and then ensure that you have a more fulfilling and a happy and a nurtured life.
Right. So when were these books really published?
It's been about 3-4 years now that they got published, and when I'm talking about clarity now, that's what happened to me when I was working as a certified relationship coach and a divorce coach. I felt something wasn't aligned. I felt that there was this misalignment between my internal world and my external world. And I had to sit long enough, take a pause, and reflect on what my reality was currently. And that's what led me to evolve my work and pivot towards executive coaching and personal leadership coaching.
Right. So I can see the current cornerstones which have transformed you to where you are right now, Monica. But what I would like to understand is when you were a child, how were you and how much of that child do you carry in you now?
Oh, that is so multi-layered, so multi-layered. Uh, because as a child, I I would say I was an overachiever. I studied in boardings for almost 17 years. So I went to a boarding when I was only 7 years old. And till I did my post graduation, I was always in a boarding. So that was about 17 years. But I was very, very hardworking. I was a university gold medalist, loads and loads of achievements. And I think the idea now, when I look back, maybe somewhere along the line, I was trying to please everyone around me. And I took on those roles of being an achiever from quite early on in my life. Um, and the same thing was happening with me when I started coaching. I wanted to have it all together, and that's what I had to let go as a coach, because initially I thought I had to show to my clients that I was the most capable coach and that I was the strongest and that I was the most polished. It was only when I started doing a lot of inner work on myself, because I realized I was very disconnected from my own self. That's when I had to look at all the patterns that were in the driving seat. I had to unmask myself and ask some very hard questions, which meant, once again, retraining my nervous system. Um, I had to set boundaries. I had to tend to my inner child. I had to, I had to, I would say I had to really look hard and deep at myself so that I could get into alignment. And this version of me that you see currently is after a lot of inner work, along with a lot of certifications that I have, whether as a certified relationship coach, divorce coach, as a life coach, as a NLP practitioner, as a hypnotherapist. So along with this skill set, I've had to do a lot of work on myself, because the deeper I can understand myself is the deeper I can take my clients and hold space for them, where I can
Fantastic.
show up more authentically, where I can be more real, and where I don't have to pretend that I am someone else, which I'm not. So that there is more transparency and better understanding between the clients and my journey.
Yeah. So I was going to come up, the word authentic came to my mind when you said that, you were looking at all the things that were at the driving seat. And I was thinking, so you were actually finding your authentic self. And you were then, sort of realigning yourself to your authentic self. I believe that being authentic is one of the keys to better relationships, better understanding yourself, better self-awareness, better self-regulation. You name it, and it's much better to be authentic than be anything else. Makes life so much easier, doesn't it?
But yeah, it is easily said than done. And the word authenticity these days has become a buzzword. Everyone's saying, oh, I'm very authentic, I'm very authentic. They've done some few things here and there. However, yes, it's much easier. It develops much better relationships. However, it's really hard, really, really hard to become authentic because it implies that you have to accept, yourself as having, yeah, I would have to use that word that you have certain bad qualities and some good qualities. You have to accept that you're a combination of everything, which most of us find it hard to accept because we always want to project the very best of us. Whereas inside, there are parts of us that want to come up, but we push them away, we shove them away, and that's why they keep persisting. And for others to see that we hold both these together, it is too much for our nervous systems to accept because that implies that we have to become vulnerable, and that also implies that we might get rejected or abandoned and may not be accepted. And as humans, we want to belong, you know and in order to belong, we give away on our self expression at a very, very early age in order to be loved by our parents, in order to be accepted by our caregivers. So to accept that vulnerability and to accept who we really are authentically, it can become quite difficult. However, just taking one step at a time, not bringing everything in all together so that our nervous system feels safe. And even if you've fallen off, it doesn't matter because our nervous system is only trying to protect us. So through all this, I would say when you're on your journey, I would call this as a journey. It's a journey of truth seekers, I would say. So when we are on that journey, yes, we will take 3 steps ahead, but we might fall 5 steps behind. So it's not about being harsh to ourselves. Firstly, bringing about awareness, noticing what's happening. Or this is what has happened. I was no longer authentic. And then being really compassionate with yourself, because that self-compassion is the key. Because one guiding principle that I'm always anchored to at the moment is the idea that clarity is kindness to yourself first. It's very, very important to remember that.
I wrote about finding my authentic self in one of in a story that I wrote in one of the books. So I do understand what you're talking about, the entire journey, and it is a journey, and it can be quite tough. But once you have reached it, or once you have, been able to find your authentic self, I think life becomes quite easy at that time. It becomes quite simple, and you know how to make it simple. That is the more important part that I feel.
Yes, Banya, and at the same time, when you are on that journey, when you are trying to be authentic and doing your inner work, there are all the chances that people that you've always been close to slowly start dropping off from you. So the people that were the closest are the first ones when they notice this change in you, they leave you. They absolutely leave you. But at the same time, the people that you will attract thereafter are the ones that will live with you forever because they will accept you for who you are and how you're showing up. Because when we are being authentic, it also implies we are setting our boundaries, and some people around us haven't had the experience of us setting boundaries, and that can be too much for them, and as such they will leave you. So that this journey, yes, is very rewarding, but it is at the same time very painful as well.
I think when you learn to be alone, like being solitary, or I don't think that is the same as being lonely. I can be very happy, being with myself. In fact, if I think I'm a true introvert. Have you heard of this personality trait which has come up of late? And I am so excited about this personality trait because when I read about it, I'm like, oh, I find myself like this because it is so, so similar. I quite enjoy actually going for a meal by myself. I quite enjoy, going for a walk all by myself. I quite enjoy meeting people as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't have started a program like this. So I do enjoy that part, but I also enjoy being totally with myself. And that has happened once I discovered my authentic self. And I said, so this is what it is. And I'm quite happy doing, what I do. Moving on to this, let me ask you then. I can almost get a few of the principles, but I would still ask you, what is your mantra as a coach?
Um, I think I just mentioned that to you, and I would like to repeat it. I am always anchored to this mantra about clarity and I'll repeat myself that clarity is kindness to yourself first. Because often what I've noticed is that, and I've had to remind myself that as well, that when we are confused, then it's not a failure. Or when we are feeling foggy, we are not lost. It's just a feedback to us that something inside us is out of alignment, that there is something in us that is asking us to be more honest with ourselves. So I really stick with that mantra quite a lot.
Right. Um, we have spoken about your cornerstones and that have, your experiences, which have made you the coach you are today. So I'll move on to asking you about what are the challenges that you face as a coach?
So many challenges. How can this journey ever be smooth, you know? First and foremost, the first challenge that can come up for any coach, and which came up for me as well, is being able to be really present. Because when a client is sharing a story, the first thing that I notice now is what's happening within me when someone is sharing their story. And what is happening in the space between the two of us. Because that was a challenge for me. There was a time when I would get really affected with the stories that people told me about their relationships, because that at that time, if I talk about that aspect, at that time it was like, what's happening in their lives? Is that how did that impact me, or how did it come about in my life? So what's happening in my body? So the biggest challenge for me had been where I had to really bring myself back into the present moment. And then out of my curiosity, ask them questions through which I could serve them. So that was a kind of a challenge for me. The other challenge was, as I mentioned earlier, was to hold it all together, to present myself as being the most capable coach, you know. And then I realized that I was disconnected from myself. And I have noticed that real change comes when we don't do things differently, but we see ourselves differently. And I had to let go of that version of myself where I was pretending, because transformation can come about for the client and for yourself when you allow yourself to be just as you are.
Totally agree. I absolutely agree on this. You have been coaching now for almost, say, 2 decades?
No, I have been coaching for about 6 or 7 years now.
Oh, okay. And before that, you were?
I was in the education industry. I'm an
Okay.
educationist, and then I took up coaching because primarily after my divorce, that was the time when I wanted to find out what good relationships looked like. And the books also that came about because I wasn't aware of what the red flags were or how to spot them. I wish I had that book, which I wrote down, when I was going through my own, through a very challenging time. That's what led me to write those books. So that's how my work has then evolved over to now working with leaders and working with where I'm concentrating more on alignment, more on clarity, more in ensuring why their confidence is kind of up and down, and bringing them back into their renewed energy.
Okay, so then let's travel back to the first job that you got. What
Yes,
was that?
I was teaching back in India once.
Okay.
So a long time ago now. I've been in Australia for almost 2 decades. So it was much earlier that I was working there as a teacher.
Okay, and what did you teach? And, like school, university, where were you?
I was in school. I was teaching in Delhi Public School, and I used to teach economics. I was the head of the department for humanities. So yes, it's been a very long time.
Okay, so then from there, you came to Australia. Then what happened?
I was teaching here as well. And
Okay.
I still continue to teach, because an educationist will always remain an educationist. So I am still into teaching. I'm still into training. I do workshops. I'm also a speaker. And obviously that leads me into being coaching and then being of service to people.
Okay, so here when you came and you taught, what were you teaching here again? Economics again, or was it something else?
Economics wasn't very easily available when I came here, because economics was taught only in very few schools. When I came, it was generally either in the private schools, independent schools, or some Catholic schools offered it. Not many state schools offered it. So I moved into English and humanities, and that's what I used to teach and still continue to teach.
So you're still a teacher. You're still
Yes,
affiliated to a
I'm
school.
I am still a teacher at heart, and I'm still
Okay.
teaching. Yes.
All right. Okay, so now let's talk about so you were coaching, say now for 6, 7 years. So when you first started coaching and and the coaching that you're doing now, how different is it? Let's start with, the operations part of it, and then let's move on to the other things.
Um, Initially, I would say when I started coaching, um, I'd say initially when I started coaching, things were not very different and yet quite different. In the sense that at that time, I was evolving as a coach, and I was on my own journey as well. So at that point in time, the depth that I took my clients to was not as much as the depth that I can hold now for my clients. The transformation, I think, at that time was much surface level in comparison to the transformation, the deep transformation that I can bring about in my clients now. Because I can understand the nuances much better now, in comparison to what it was at that time.
Hmm. Right. How do you sustain your own energy?
Oh, beautiful. um, I do a lot of meditation.
Mhm.
I, without fail, I meditate for at least an hour and a half a day. And at the same time, so my routines in the morning are very different from the world. And I'm sure there are others who might be following the same. So I get up very early in the morning. And then I meditate for an hour and a half. And after that, I have a very energetic dog. So I spend a lot of time in nature. My dog and I go out for very long walks in the morning. And that keeps me ready for the day. And then once I come back in the evening, the routine follows, where I come back in the sense when I finished my work. That's the time then, in order to unwind myself, both my dog and I go for long walks again in the evening. And being in nature, just being out and about and really observing every little detail. Along with that, I think it's my gratitude practice. I feel I'm really, really blessed to be on the journey that I am. I wouldn't say that I haven't had challenges. I've had immense challenges just like anyone else. However, I think every challenge prepares you, for your own purpose in life, because these challenges are presented to us because our soul needs to grow. And therefore, there are some challenges that are thrown in our lives over and over again. Perhaps the universe wants to confirm that you've actually evolved through those challenges. And I really feel that the soul has a purpose on why it's here. And therefore, in order to ensure that I have done my work for why I am here in this earth school and following its curriculum, that I'm able to evolve myself further as I progress into the various challenges that I experience.
Right. I see a very deep person here, a person who is quite involved in how yourself is transforming and growing, and being a lifelong learner in self-improvement is what I'm hearing from you, Monica. What kind of meditation do you do?
There are so many of them. Sometimes I'm concentrating on my breath. Sometimes I'm just sitting in silence. Sometimes I will do some guided meditation. But generally, it's always about concentrating on the breath and coming back to the present moment over and over again. The mind will go wild, and that's okay. But it's the moment I notice that it's gone elsewhere, it's about bringing it back and then being in a place of nowhere, so that I'm because I personally feel that our mind is like this puppy, the wild puppy that wants to run away everywhere, but we have to train it to bring it back so that uh, we can master it, and it can be mastered. Um, Not that we have to be harsh on ourselves, but just bringing ourselves back over and over again to our breath and to this current present moment. Because I personally feel that when we are in that present moment, then we have choices, because otherwise we feel we have no choice and we get into that black and white thinking. Whereas we are in the present moment, we are in our prefrontal cortex, and we are able to be in our bodies, we are able to ground ourselves, and we can create a world from the inside out rather than the world creating life experiences for us.
Right. I agree with you, because when I started meditating, I started at the age of 3. And all through the time, I come from a Buddhist family. So for us, Vipassana is our default meditation technique that we follow. So for me, it was Vipassana that I did. And then later on, I moved on to mantras, and I started doing more mantras and things like that. So anyone who says, you meditate, I'm very curious to know how are you doing it and what are you following, because there are so many umpteen ways of meditating. Coming to understanding, what is the legacy that you are going to leave behind? What do you think is the legacy? And are you consciously building a legacy?
Yes, certainly. In terms of the legacy that I want to leave, I would like to say that if there's one thing that I want to leave people with, is that clarity isn't a skill set. Clarity is a relationship. And I would like to emphasize that when we learn to lead ourselves from the inside out, we can see that everything around us, whether it's our relationships, whether it's our work, whether it's our leadership, everything begins to align. And at the same time, I hope my work can also remind people that when we are successful, it does not have to cost our aliveness. We can be immensely successful, and at the same time, we can be deeply alive. So the two can walk hand in hand, and that can be achieved when we are in alignment with ourselves. So our internal world and our external world are in alignment with each other.
This is pretty hard for a lot of people to do, because a lot of people, to find that alignment, they sometimes they don't like their alignment. Sometimes they don't like what they're seeing, and makes it difficult. Uh, how do you want my audience and my listeners to connect with you?
They can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. I am also very active on YouTube. They can go to my website and they can send me a message from there, or they can send me a message even on LinkedIn or on YouTube. I'm there on Facebook as well, and on Instagram as well, but on LinkedIn, I'm very active. I would highly encourage people to take my Reignite Your Spark assessment on my website, because that will provide them an insight. And at the same time, anyone who's listening to this podcast, I'm more than happy to give 5 free clarity calls if they want. So they can get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy if they can just write to me that they listened to this podcast, and I'll be so honored when they do that. And then get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to provide clarity calls to them.
Yeah, they will not only listen to you, they will also be able to see you. That's the best part. Thank you so much, Monica. We have had such a lovely conversation on self-transformation and the self-learning process that we have to go through. As coaches, we are constantly doing it. And so we are doing it not only for our clients, but we are also doing it for ourselves, which is such a nice perspective to share with our audience here. Thank you for all your insights and experiences. I absolutely believe that this session is going to empower our audience. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.